All right, thank you for joining us again on our program, African Discourse on Independent Television. It's a very good afternoon, so you're welcome to the program. Well, today we are going to be looking at what happened in Abuja on Sunday, that's yesterday, whereby the 67th Ordinary Session of the Economic Community of West African States was held in Abuja. And we understand that the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, convened on Sunday, June 22nd, 2025, in Nigeria's capital, Abuja. Regional heads of states gathered to evaluate the bloc's current state, which continues to grapple with internal instability following a move of a military coup in several number countries. And of course, we also understand that the Commission President Mao Liu Tuare is was scheduled to present an update on the status of the negotiation regarding the former withdrawal of Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso. And of course, this move was also meant to reshape the bloc's political and economic landscape. And also, we understand too that a summit came as Nigerian President Bola Ahmed Tinubu prepared to leave. And as it stands now, he has already left as to the chairman of ECOWAS and handed over to the Sierra Leonean president. So we're going to be looking at all this today against the backdrop that some will say the leadership of ECOWAS under our president, some will say it's not really impressive. I mean, for the first time that we are seeing that we saw about 4 major countries leaving the bloc when we had a chairman there. And as we speak now, Niger, Burkina Faso, Mali, and of course, one other countries have left the bloc. So it is not too impressive as people will describe. So we're going to be looking at the leadership of ECOWAS under President Bola Tinubu, and also I will also look at how this new leadership now it tends to bring some form of respite to ECOWAS. Well, to discuss all this today, we're so privileged to have 2 gentlemen here. First and foremost, join me to welcome Mr. Austin Adogame Brahima, who is a security consultant and, of course, the immediate past commissioner, South Police Service Commission. He's joining us via Zoom this afternoon from Abuja. Austin Brahima, good afternoon, sir. All right, Mr. Brahima, good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon. I hope you can hear me clearly.
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear. You're welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Okay. Also, we have Professor Buyinami Adeshino, that's a Deputy Vice Chancellor with the University of Benin, and of course, a political public affairs analyst. You're welcome to the program, African Discourse.
Well, good afternoon.
Okay. All right, so let's quickly see how it went yesterday in Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory, whereby the 67th Ordinary Session of ECOWAS was held. Let's see. Okay. All right. So when that video is ready, we'll let you see so that you can see how it went. All right. So, gentlemen, we'll start with Mr. Austin Brahima. Now, yesterday we saw various heads of states coming together in the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, to discuss the way forward about ECOWAS. Now, how would you want to describe, maybe in a single expression, the leadership of ECOWAS under our President Bola Ahmed Tinubu?
Well, if you want me to use a simple word, I will call the leadership robust. Very robust. Because when you think, if I'm not going to describe what I mean by being robust, I'll simply just leave it a very robust leadership, looking at the content and what prevails during his tenure.
All right, so I don't think if I picked that word correctly. You said you described the leadership as what, sir?
Yeah, you said I should describe his tenure in one word.
Yes, yes. All right, can you repeat that?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, but I need to get your word. And now, the leadership of ECOWAS under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, how would you describe it?
Yeah, I told you, you said if I can describe it in one word, and I say yes. I described the leadership as robust. And if you want me to comment further, I will add that the robustness of his leadership within these 2 years he assumed that office will totally be assessed based on events that took place during his tenure.
Okay.
ECOWAS is no longer a baby, and we also, for the attendance, was equally robust from all the countries that are still loyal and still active.
Okay.
It has gone, the ECOWAS has gone through turbulence, which I believe we will go to discuss in the course of this program. And I think within the years, President Ahmed Tinubu was in saddle, we saw the challenges that came up. They are not unusual. And I think we could also examine his response to those challenges in the context of what played out politically among the member nations. And we can situate then what we think he achieved based on this.
All right, so I picked a word now. I mean, you said that the leadership was robust, so I'll leave it there for now. Now, let me come to the studio now. Professor, now, how would you want to describe the leadership of ECOWAS? I mean, whether we like it or not, ECOWAS became 50 years, under his leadership, and 2 years in his leadership, we saw for the very first time 2 countries leaving the bloc to military junta.
Well, it's one would not say it has been a very smooth journey for our president as the leader of ECOWAS for the past 2 years. Realizing the fact that probably one would say he probably inherited a period of crisis, which he also tried as much as possible to manage, but he couldn't, leading to 3-4 countries, as you mentioned, deciding to leave the fold. And even as at yesterday, from what we gathered, the 3 countries, Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, their leaders were also invited to the meeting yesterday.
They declined that invitation, yeah?
They declined the invitation, which of course also means that the crisis is still very much there. And this is the same crisis. It's like having an incomplete bloc being handed over to the new president of the chairman or president of ECOWAS, as the case may be. And with that, one cannot say it has been a smooth ride for him.
Okay.
It's not a smooth session for him. Moreover, looking at the various crises, one, the crisis that led to the pulling out of these countries, the internal crisis as well as the external factors, which are still very much there today, and which have been extended to other parts of West Africa as well as Africa as a whole. Because you have these, the terrorists or the bandits that you have in Mali, that you have in Burkina Faso, that you have in Niger. Some of them moving across to Chad, some moving across to Nigeria, and gradually extending their nefarious activities into all these ramifications, all these areas. You also have some of them going towards Sierra Leone or Liberia, as the case may be.
Okay.
So it's something that is spreading.
Okay. All right. So let's see the video now. We have that video, the 67th ordinary session of the ECOWAS in Abuja yesterday.
And privileged to have led the esteemed regional bloc, adding that he remained deeply humbled by the trust and support.
I think, all right, so we're going to be showing that, but as the program goes on, all right, so this is the new chairman now of the bloc, ECOWAS, talking about the Sierra Leonean president by name, Mada Bio. That's the new, you can see the handing over of the leadership mantle to the new chairman of ECOWAS. All right, so Mr. Austin Obraimo, let me come back to you. Now, your own words of describing the leadership of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu as the chairman of ECOWAS is that it was very robust. But the robustness that you tend to describe now, some people will say that they've not been able to see that. I mean, it didn't play out. So for the first time, 3-4 countries living at a single, spell under just one leadership. So how robust would you want to say that leadership it was?
Yeah, the leadership is described as robust. When you look at its approach to the development, uh, the reasons why these 3 countries left after military intervention in their affairs, we are so clear that had nothing to do with the leadership of ECOWAS. What we can use to assess Tinubu's performance during those crises were how much effort did he put in to uphold the tenets, to uphold the constitution, to uphold the the basis of the existence of ECOWAS. And don't forget that ECOWAS treaty does not permit any more military intervention in the affairs of any of its member nations. And so if any member nation finds itself under such condition as Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali, the immediate thing was that they are supposed to be expelled, or they automatically expel themselves until democracy is restored to such nations. It was apparent that the ECOWAS Charter and Treaty was violated immediately the military government came into those countries. What would the leadership do? You have to enforce the rules. And I think President Bola Ahmed Tinubu did exactly that. And in doing so, he did that with a lot of consultations with other nations and made a lot of efforts to the best of our knowledge to find a soft landing for the countries involved by reaching out to them and letting them know why they need to immediately put a program in place for a return to democratic rule. And this is what he did with clear diplomatic, I can recall that he sent several missions to Burkina Faso when it happened, and also to Niger, and persuaded them to put up an immediate program, which was for return to civilian rule. These were repudiated, and they were internationally reported. And the applause that they were calling off the bluff of their former colonial rule overshadowed what ECOWAS was trying to do. And so, even when effort was made at issuing a little threat that if you don't return or put a program of returning to democratic rule, which is the main reason why you could function as an ECOWAS nation, they repudiated that move. Yes, there was a threat, there was an attempt by ECOWAS nations to, in fact, use force. It was a subtle attempt. It was not initiated by the president at the head, but by the collective group. So, and eventually, because it was discovered it may be counterproductive, that effort was stepped down. But overall, let us assess those periods. It was an ideological problem. We cannot blame the leadership of ECOWAS for what transpired. Whether 3, 4, 5 countries decided to exit or under military rule, they had existed on their own. It wasn't the fault of the president. How did he respond? He responded appropriately by letting everybody know that we must keep to the rules, we must observe the protocol, we must agree with our agreement and conform with what the collective agreement of the nations were. And on that note, I score him very high.
We have a new chairman of ECOWAS now. Now, the video, I think we are set for the video now. Let's hear the former chairman talking about our own president, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, making his speech at that ordinary session. Then, of course, we'll also see the new chairman coming on board and also making his own speech too.
No single nation can therefore address these challenges alone. We must strengthen coordination, amplify political will, and prioritize a collective approach to security. This is why the ECOWAS standby force must move from the concept to operational reality now. I am a little bit worried about the slow pace of its activation, which is taking longer than desired.
It would be difficult to point to the causes of the hike in attacks, but what I can say for sure is that the threat we are facing cannot be handled by one country alone. This is why joint efforts are important, and this is why the President is saying that we need to act fast on the ECOWAS standby force.
All right, thank you one more time. We sincerely apologize for that there. It was due to some technical hitches here. Right now, we saw whereby the issue of the standby force was talked about. And of course, the need for ECOWAS to have a standby force. Now, Prof, I don't know what the intention of this now. Is it that we're probably going back to the days of ECOMOG, you know, when we had tensions in Liberia and all that?
Well, I would not want to say that the situation we have at hand is similar to the scenario that led to the formation of ECOMOG then. Because we are all aware that the time Samuel Doe was there was internal crisis. He wasn't a military man. They had democracy in place, but there was this internal rivalry between him and 2-3 persons, including Charles Taylor. And when it was becoming a real problem to the entire region, spreading across to Liberia, Sierra Leone, and some other countries surrounding them, that was when ECOMOG came into force to make sure that they put sanity, they established sanity in the system. And they were able to do that. That scenario, as I said earlier on, is completely different from what we have now. We have a situation where you have military men who have taken up a position of leadership in Burkina Faso, in Mali, in Niger. And don't forget that these countries are linked to one another, more or less starting from Mali across to Burkina Faso, the entire land space of Niger. You are talking of a large, vast of land. And to say that you want to establish a standing force that will go and face this person, it will be like reigniting spirals of crisis again. Because you can only do that where you have total rejection by their own respective peoples who feel that, no, we don't want you. Because the situation that led to their coming out in the first place, we are not addressing that. You have foreigners, France, you have other foreigners who are mining their whatever mineral resources that they have, paying them peanuts. Who these persons now feel that, no, you cannot continue like this.
So that's probably what is responsible for the regional tensions.
Yes, it's part of it. It's part of it. Particularly, you remember that of Niger, when they told them this is how much they were selling, and then this is how much Russia decided to buy or sell for them, which was running into millions of dollars. So if you look at all that, you cannot say the people are not better off now, because Burkina Faso, except what we are seeing in social media, are all tissues of lies. But as long as the Burkinabes are not complaining, they are not saying things contrary to what we are saying, I think it may be difficult.
Okay. All right. So, Austin Brimer, I guess you're still there. So let me come to you now, because we're talking about issues around regional tensions. And for an span of like 15, 18 years now, it's been, war and, of course, regional tensions here and there in the ECOWAS bloc. Now, the issue of standby force, the need for ECOWAS to have standby force. Now, would that bring some form of respite in these tension areas?
Yes, to the extent that the joint efforts at policing our border would make a lot of difference. And I quite agree with Prof in looking at what ECOWAS
Benganda.
achieved in Liberia and Sierra Leone. But at this point in time, the approach is different. The objective is not the same. And when you look at what the ideological tensions that I want to call it ideological, because you find that most of the countries that are falling into the hands of the military are majorly France, ex-France colonies. And because of the kind of treaty or the kind of agreement they went into before they were granted independence, they begin to notice that they pushed themselves into economic slavery and bondage. And some of their intelligentials begin to think of how to extricate themselves from those kind of ties they had knowingly or unknowingly with their former colonial masters. And politically, they could not. And they found that the only way out was to the military to come and unload the kind of intricate economic bondage they had with their former colonial masters. So that is the thread that runs through the 3 or 4 countries that are under military rule right now.
All right, so let me pause you. Let me quickly pause you now because we need to do a break now. We'll be right back. So when we return, we'll continue from where you stopped. All right, thank you one more time. The program is still much alive here on independent television, and I still have Mr. Austin Brahima there, joining us virtually this afternoon, and also Professor Buyinami Adeshino Ayinde. Now, we'll come back to you, Mr. Austin Brahima, the issue of regional tension, and of course, leadership transition, and the need for us to have a respite in the ECOWAS region. We were trying to look at the issue of stand force that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu may not have achieved, but for the fact that we have a new chairman on board now. Now, are we saying that the need for us to have this stand force is necessary within the bloc at this point?
Yes, like I said, it is necessary. And it's going to stand to the credit of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu for pushing it on top of the agenda, even on his last day in office. This will be justified when you look at it. Is not just because of the tension within the nations and sub-nations. The border of these countries, Niger, Chad, Mali, and Nigeria, these 4 countries, in fact, they are almost borderless, except you are not familiar with these countries. They are almost borderless. The kind of space they occupy is such that it's very easy for people to move across borders unchecked. It's really difficult. So when you go to expect the internal security of one nation to police the borders of each of these nations. So a joint task force, a joint military force, a joint security force by ECOWAS nations will, in a very, very long way, help to reduce not just the tension, to reduce the conflicts and the oversight that is being done by the police, custom immigrations of these nations because of the large and porous nature of our borders. So it's important. And to cap this, the inflow of terrorists from the east and west of Europe, and when you look at the tension in the Middle East, it is very, very difficult for you to portray the movement of terrorists from the Middle East. With the conflict going on in Iraq right now with Israel, you expect some of the Shiite government in Iraq to further export terrorism. I want to be careful in selecting that word terrorism. There'll be a lot of movement from dissidents, displaced persons that would like to move across borders down towards West Africa. And they find a safe haven in some of these nations that have less policing of their borders, like Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso. And they coming down to Benin Republic, Togo, Cote d'Ivoire. As they come, they find a good haven, open spaces, you find that unmanned spaces. You see forest regions. So they easily penetrate this, settle, and decide to do whatever they think will benefit them. And I think an ECOWAS standby force will greatly enhance the operational capabilities of the internal securities of these nations. So I commend Bola Ahmed Tinubu for putting this on top of the agenda, and I believe that the incoming president, the new president, President Bill, would find this very, very convenient. He's going to get the support of all the member nations to get this going. It may be modeled like the former ECOWAS, but I believe that the structure they are putting in place right now is going to significantly differ from that of ECOWAS. This will enable border patrols and some other internal securities to work in harmony with the outfits that they want to create. I welcome this development. I hope it will see the light of the day very, very soon.
Professor Inde, now the issue of language is key, and of course some say that it's a sacrosanct when we talk about regional integration, because Nigeria, a francophone country, just left the leadership of ECOWAS, and of course we have the president of Sierra Leone now by Mada Bio by name, a French country. Now, are we trying to look at the possibility of maybe, for the fact that we have a French leadership now, that maybe Mada Bio will be able to bring these three countries that left back to ECOWAS? I mean, language.
Well, I will not want to subscribe to that kind of proposition, because of the fact that one, it's not only francophone and anglophone countries that you have in West Africa.
Yeah.
I mean, the ECOWAS. You also have the ones they call the Lusophone, the one where they speak Portugal, where Portuguese.
It's spoken.
Like Guinea-Bissau. Now, looking at the issue of the language, that may not really address the fundamental problem. He made mention of the kind of policies that the francophone countries had with France at the point of independence. If you look at the length and breadth of such materials, you observe that francophone countries are more or less tied to the poles right from the onset. So if you now have people who feel that we have to free ourselves, one cannot blame them. And I feel that ECOWAS as a body ought to have been able to start addressing these fundamental issues. Otherwise, we remain where we are. You can imagine a situation where France has it in as part of the terms for independence, that any francophone country, whenever they make budgets for the year, 40% of such budget must go to France. And if they have any foreign reserve, the foreign reserve should be domiciled in the Bank of France. And if they want to take anything from that, it should not be more than 20% of what they have. If they are taking more than 20% of what they have, automatically it will be given to them as a loan, which means they will be paying interest on their own wealth. If they have any valuable mineral resources, the first country that has the authority to explore that for them is France. If France is not interested, France has the authority to call another country that is interested to come and do it on their behalf. You know, there are so many obnoxious rules that these people must have observed, or they are observing today. And if eventually you have any of them that says they are no longer interested in France ruling them, whatever France has been able to do for them, France will take everything, destroy all that, which we saw in either Burkina Faso or Niger, where they destroyed physical vehicles before they left. So if people already, so they must have grown to start hearing all this, they experienced it. I repeat, why is it difficult for ECOWAS as a body to start confronting these evils that have changed people perpetually within the confines of poverty, impoverished people to the extent that you feel that when you go out of the shores of West Africa or Africa, you are like someone that has become freed. Huh? You don't see anything good in your own soil again. And that is the kind of life that people have continued to live. So if you now have people who now say that, no, we cannot continue to be like this, and you want to force them back to this chain of slavery, I think there is something fundamental that we have to address.
All right, so Mr. Austin Brima, now in addressing those fundamental issues, the onus as it is now lies on the new chairman to see that the countries that may have left may return back, and little wonder if that's ever going to be. Anyway, now, how do you think that Mada Biu, the Sierra Leonean president now, how would he bring back all these, issues we're talking back together in ECOWAS?
Yeah, it's a Herculean task, and the fundamental assignment on his hand is to keep ECOWAS together as it is. Then the challenge of getting those who have left back is big. It's a serious challenge for the whole member nations. When Prof has analyzed the issues before the chairman, what necessitated the interventions, the military intervention, the truncation of democracy, and what led the military to truncate democracy in these countries, they were unavoidable. And they were not issues that ECOWAS as a subregional power to address. Because if you recall, a few occasions when attempt by some politicians in Cote d'Ivoire wanted to raise issues about some of these unwholesome, unholy agreements between between France and some of these countries in Mali, Niger. There were pleasures. Some of them were eliminated. And we know how the superpowers and our former colonial masters operate. They have high level of security men, intelligence people around our government. They control our political space. They control our security space. So they could virtually and almost get what they want from us. So, but your question is the task before Biu. How will we get this country back? It's a challenge before the whole Francophone countries. And I think Senegal is also a player in that field. You can see that the Anglophone countries are a bit more stable. The conditions of independence from Great Britain and the Portuguese, the Germans, and the rest were not as very cumbersome as that of France. But we think France itself, you can see, has come to realization that some of the conditions they gave were really anti-nations, anti-independence. And we believe that they are likely to encourage and allow these nations to be. And as it is, we believe that some of these leaders, if they are not selfish, they are going to listen to the new leadership of ECOWAS, listen to ECOWAS nations, listen to some of the pressures coming now, asking them to have a rethink to return to the fold. They're going to think how to put back, evolve new democratic principles that will enable them to drop their uniform, either run a proper election or allow really civilians to come back to take the seats. And if that is not done, there is no way ECOWAS can accommodate them because of the charter and the under which we operate. So we believe that within the next year or two, before the exit of the present leadership, we believe that something really good will play out amongst these four nations. You'll see the need to democratize and then come back to the ECOWAS family. I think President Tinubu has softened ground already for the new chairman. He's not going to face too much challenges in persuading these nations to democratize, and we see that happening within the next 1 to 2 years.
Thank you so much, Mr. Austin Ibrahim. Now, Prof, now I remember the founding ideology of ECOWAS was simply for economical prowess among member states. But some would say that the 2 years of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, that has been a major challenge, and we have another leadership now. That is one on one side. And another issue that may have wrestled against the prosperity of ECOWAS now has been the issue of lack of identity. Apart from the ECOWAS passports that I know member nations have, ECOWAS as a bloc, for member nations, they really don't have a typical identity for member states. The issue of ECOWAS language is still a problem. The issue of ECOWAS currency is still a problem. Only ECOWAS passport, that's the only means of identification for member states. So we have a new leadership now. Now, how would he go in order for this?
Well, the agenda is already there, laid down for him, where President Bola Ahmed Tinubu stopped. He will be able to take it from there, and then starting with the issue of common language. The common language, it's maybe a very difficult one, so to speak, except that they start it as a project, and it may span over a period of time.
What about common currency?
The common currency too may be a challenge. I'm not an economist, and I don't claim to be to have expertise in that. But the little I can say is that take the issue of Ghana as an example. Some of us, we were in Ghana not a couple of days ago. You observe that the kind of value for money that you have in Nigeria is not there. Take, for instance, you buy a food, standard food, that you not say that you are extravagant. You buy a food for 200 cedis, and 10 cedis is, I mean, $1 is 10 cedis, right? Which of course means that you have spent $20. Now convert that $20 to our own naira here.
Almost 30,000.
That's almost 30,000 naira
for just a meal.
Sir?
For just a meal.
For just a meal. So which restaurant will you go to in this Benin that you go there to spend 30,000 naira just at a go, and people will not start looking, staring at you that what is this man doing? What kind of work does he do? Right? It is like that. You have someone who bought an anti-malaria drug that was the kind of lumefantrine artemether.
We don't mention names on the program now. We don't mention names of drugs.
Well, they just buy anti-malaria drug that you buy here maybe for 2,500 or 3,000 naira. There, when the person bought it, we converted the money to naira. It was the equivalent of 27,000 naira. So how would you say you want to harmonize all this? And this is just Ghana here. You can now imagine how these changes will be in Republic of Benin, in Togo, then in Cote d'Ivoire,
in
Niger, and so on and so forth. So there should be a way of looking at all these differences. Economists may be able to do that, but I feel that it's going to be a very difficult one, looking at the peculiarities, economic peculiarities of each country. Because in this country, things have not gone back to that extent. They may also be feeling that they are enjoying there. But as far as some of us are concerned as foreigners there, we are not at the same level at all.
All right, so as we commence our descent now, Mr. Austin, now let us, because the West African bloc seems to have been dollarized, economic activities done in dollars and all that. Now, if we take a stretch further, maybe to look at the European Union, the identical currency that they use in the EU is the euros. Now, for the president now, the issue of having an identical currency for ECOWAS is a major setback. So don't you think, sir, that that may have been one thing that may have, militated against economic progress within the region?
Yeah, I don't understand that. I don't agree to that. I, I, I'm not an economist as well, but from experiences, we know that common currency for a regional bloc like ECOWAS is not really achievable. Even with the EU you mentioned, the euro is not it's not quite viable when you look at the way it competes with the dollar. And even cross-border trade among the EU nations, dollars still tend to dominate. So if you look at ECOWAS, you can draw a parallel, except some of us don't know because we always look at the negatives in Nigeria. The Nigerian naira is dominating the ECOWAS region. If you go to Benin Republic, almost from the border to far in, the naira is very, very popular and acceptable. Some parts of Togo, naira, you don't need to exchange. To come with naira, they accept naira. Some parts of Ghana, they can take naira from you to procure some goods. So across, as you move across, you find this very, very common. It's left to Nigeria to actually place itself where it belongs. By the time we get it right, and I think we are now at the verge of getting it right, when this nation asserts itself fully, Nigeria will take its rightful place in ECOWAS. We really do not need to introduce a new currency. The dominant currency will be the economic lion and giant of the region. Just like the dollar. The dollar is an American currency. America is the world giant and lion and everything. And so their currency dominates the world. It was not, there was no agreement that from now on, let everyone trade in dollar. So at a point in time, I can assure you that all ECOWAS nations will begin to accept the naira when Nigeria begin to manufacture, we begin to export, we begin to domicile our earnings. Naira will become stronger, more viable, and more acceptable across borders, and even beyond ECOWAS. That is my view.
I just need 30 seconds now for you to quickly speak on the dollarization of the ECOWAS bloc, quickly, because that's the impression that some people have.
Well, it's a very wrong thing, because dollar, as we all know, is a foreign currency. So just as he said, if there is a way through which we can have common currency, particularly the one that will be domiciled within us. But my fear again is that just as we are condemning the domination of dollar now, it may get to a time when people will start condemning the domination of naira as well. So if we can have a central one, just like they have euro in Europe.
In Europe, in the EU.
In the EU, that's more or less something that was agreed on. Let it have this value across the board. If we can do that, that would be better for us. Okay.
Well, I want to say most sincerely, very big thank you to my panelists this afternoon. Talking about Mr. Austin Adogame Brima, who is a media security consultant, and of course, the immediate past commissioner, South Police Service Commission in Nigeria. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us all the way virtually from Abuja this afternoon. Thank you so much, sir. I appreciate you.
This is ITV.
Certainly the best.